Hello, and everybody, to the Cleaning Business Mentor podcast. I am your host, Carolyn Arellano, the CEO and founder of Spotless Cleaning Services based out of New Jersey. And on today's episode, I have a very special guest, Miss Stephanie Pipkin from Serene Clean. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today, Stephanie.
Thank you, Carolyn. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast as you were on mine. So it's fun to have the role reversal for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, first, of course, I'm going to say thank you so much for taking your time to sit down and have this conversation for the YouTube community. So before we jump into today's conversation, I would love for you to give the audience an introduction.
Absolutely. So my name is Stephanie, and I am 28 years old. In 2019, I opened Serene Clean as a little side hustle just to make some extra money around my full-time job with no intentions of it growing past perhaps a couple part-timers. And I am located in Western Wisconsin, very, very rural, and pretty much it exploded darn near immediately, and we just started growing very rapidly over the years. And so, through a hop, skip, and a jump, here we are 6 years later. I have about, anywhere between 28 and 30 staff. We have 3 locations serving Western Wisconsin, and I work remotely from Savannah, Georgia. I'm actually visiting Wisconsin right now and am in my office, but that is a couple of times a year thing. So I just do my thing remotely, and now teach a few things along the way with obviously my podcast, Filthy Rich Cleaners, and just really love our community in general. So
Thank you so much for sharing that. For those of you that don't know who Stephanie is, she is a obviously owner of Serene Clean, but she is a cleaning business mentor like myself. She is very active in all of the Zen Made groups, and I'm going to be putting all of her information in the description of this video. So make sure you guys give her a follow on all channels as well as the Facebook groups that we're in. That could be very, very beneficial for your business. So this is so interesting, and I love having these conversations because I did not know that about you. Well, there's a lot of things I don't know about you, right? So that's why we're having this conversation. But before we get into the remote business that I want to talk about, I did want to say that I have been watching you. I've been following you on social media for close to about a year now. And as you had mentioned on your podcast that we filmed a couple of weeks ago, I feel like we are kind of like on the same path. So it's been really interesting to get to watch you. Like I like to watch a lot of your videos, and I love that we have that that want to really to help people grow and help grow their business. And I feel like that's where we connected like so much. Like that's how I related to you on, on social media. I'm like, oh my God, I love her. I'm like, she genuinely cares. Like she really, really cares. You put out so much great content. And I just wanted to tell you, you're doing a fantastic job, at everything that you do.
well, thank you, Carolyn. And the feeling is mutual. Obviously, I've been admiring from afar. Now we've connected in this way, and we do have very similar paths. And just at the end of the day, the core is that I really love this industry, very specifically because so many of the owners are just like me, or I can relate to them because at the end of the day, like we start this from like the bootstraps and broke, and we just really have to be very creative to make this thing successful. And it's not something that you can just do easily. Like you have to have a lot of grit and tenacity, which we talked about in our conversation on Filthy Rich Cleaners, is that the tendency to give up is very strong, especially when there is some low barrier to entry in this industry, meaning there can be a lot of cheap competition, and that can be discouraging if you don't stay at it and really differentiate yourself in your market. And obviously, like I mentioned, we're really rural, and so we do have the benefit of not a lot of company competition. Like there are some cleaning companies, but not like if we were in Dallas or New York,
Right.
something like that. So it feels very easy to differentiate, but that doesn't mean we, pump the brakes at all. It's like all gas at all times because you just never know for a variety of things. Even like going into a potential recession right now, like we are having people cancel because of finances. So it's like you can
Right.
never take your foot off the gas when it comes to just like growth and having that mindset for sure.
Yeah, I definitely couldn't agree with you more. Anytime that I've gotten comfortable in my cleaning business, and I didn't have my foot on the gas, meaning, wasn't paying attention to the ads, not doing enough, that will reflect on your calendar. Like maybe not at that specific moment because there's so much going on, all these cleans happening, but then you see it in a few weeks. So I 100% agree with you that it is a full-time job marketing your cleaning business, especially in the residential space, right? It's a constant marketing of the businesses and really trying to, connect with your clients. Now, back to the remote cleaning business. This is so cool because I didn't know that. So I knew you had mentioned living in, you said Georgia,
Yep.
right? In Georgia. But I didn't know that your cleaning business was in Wisconsin. So that's really cool. So could you tell us how did that come to be? And
Yeah.
how is that and like how do you make that work? Like that is so interesting. I love it.
Absolutely. And so, yes, I'm born and raised Wisconsinite. And so we had kind of a crazy job opportunity come up. Oh, let's see, a few years ago. And it was when all of the Afghan refugees were brought over to America. They were put at, or 15,000 of them were placed at our local military base. And there was a large contract out to do the janitorial work facilitating the support of these folks because it's basically a small city that just got transplanted. And so I said yes, I will be one of the subcontractors on this job because there was a large contractor over it, and it was just this like insane thing. Basically, it ended up being 313 buildings twice a day. It took over 100 janitorial staff a day to actually make this thing function. So I only had 30, and at that point I literally had to turn to my management staff because I have a team of managers and say, I cannot have anything to do with the normal day-to-day operations. I'm going to be at Fort McCoy. It's a 7-day-a-week job indefinitely. No idea how long this is going to be because it's kind of a emergency, situation
Right.
that our country is reacting to, like just kind of a wild once in a lifetime thing. And so I was gone and the business had to operate without me. And so this was truly the trial run that ended up being about 6 months. And that is where I, met my boyfriend who lived in Savannah. And that is what brought me to Savannah. But the only way that I felt comfortable actually like moving across the country was this trial run of, can the day-to-day operations happen without Stephanie in the thick of it? And it was proven there very clearly that my managers, we had done enough system documentation. We had our processes so well defined of what's supposed to happen that yeah, it ran without me. And obviously like I was, still touching base and things like that, but from like an operations standpoint, I was not needed. And so that really even, I don't think before that job happened, I would have even considered it. But like, there's no way that this can work. But
Right.
I've lived, remotely now for over 2 years from my business, and nothing has changed. It's only been good. So no negative effects of it, truly.
Right. No, that is so awesome and exciting. And I love how the opportunity came to you. Congratulations, first off, for
They
getting that
Googled us.
opportunity.
They Googled cleaning services.
That's
That's how we got that
amazing. No,
job.
but that is like such a unique story though. And a great opportunity for the business. And I love how you were just like, you know what, I'm taking it, I'm doing it. We're gonna figure this out. And that's when you realize, hey, I don't physically have to be there, which is great, right? Because I didn't think the same thing either when I first started my business. I was like, I have to live here. I have to be here. I have to be physically available. Like if I need to go out and do something, it has to happen. And then over the years, we also learned, that that's not the case. But I love that you live across the country, which I think
Yeah,
is
there
super
like well,
interesting.
they can't be the backup cleaner anymore.
Right.
That was always, the case. And full credit, obviously, I have like basically this angelic crew of management team like that. It would make it not possible to do this. Additionally, with us, continually putting protective mechanisms in place with the realities of our business, call outs, people quitting, getting, the turnover is real, right? And so now we have an on-call full-time person who also does our training and things. So as the business has grown and our ability to take on more extensive overhead costs have grown, that means we've been able to protect ourselves more from like what is the reality of the situation. And that's why it's like, could I have done this before all of this had been established? No. So all of this to be said, yes, this is like cool and awesome and like insane that this is my life, but it absolutely could not have happened before it actually did happen, if that makes sense. Like everything had to happen the way it did. I could not have jumped in line and tried to do a remote cleaning business and still had the success that we do if we had skipped all of the painstaking Stephanie cleaning, Stephanie training, Stephanie doing the operations, and then slowly getting out of the field, slowly getting out of the office, like all of these things. So it's not just like snap and it can happen. I mean, unless you run ICs completely, that's not the way we do it. All of our staff are 100% W-2. And obviously there's a lot of ways to skin the cat on staffing when it comes to the cleaning industry. Just what we prefer to do because our culture is very important to me and important to the success of our team. So I don't think I would ever be open to running ICs. But if you do run ICs, that can facilitate being remote a lot faster, I think.
Right. No, but I do love how your journey in the cleaning industry. Obviously, everybody's is different. Some people do jump in right from, the remote cleaning business, but I just like you started off cleaning, boots on the ground, figured everything out, documented it, and you had a really good point. You did everything in the right order, right? You had all your processes, you figured it out, you knew what to expect. And I also want to say, and this is not to, upset anybody, but I also kind of feel like with having the experience, at least because I do work with people who start remote cleaning businesses, right? And I can, say this pretty confidently that although it is possible, there is a huge lack of understanding, right? Because as a cleaning business owner, if you haven't cleaned, if you don't know what it takes, the effort, the time, the elbow grease, all these things, it's kind of hard to understand what you're asking of your cleaners. It's kind of hard to set expectations when you haven't had that experience. So just like you, we also started from the very beginning and ground up. And I think this is a great testimony because if you are running your cleaning business, fully W-2 employees, it is possible to not have to be in the same state as your business. Stephanie's obviously living proof. And like she said, it does take a lot of work. You do have to figure out every different scenario that can possibly happen, but it's worth it. It's absolutely worth it. And it is a long game, just like any business. Of course, you can come into it and be highly successful the first couple of months. Does it happen to everybody? No, but can happen. But overall, there is a lot of work that goes into it. As you mentioned, there's plenty of times you want to quit. I mean, I don't know how many couple of weeks go by where I'm just like, why am I doing this? And you kind of snap out of it and you're like, okay, I got my stuff back together, let me get myself uh gathered. But I love that. So how did you get into cleaning? Like how did you get into the industry overall? Because like you had mentioned, I feel like there's a huge percentage of us that do it like out of pure necessity, right? It's like we don't want to. I mean, we might be good at it, but it's like we need the money. And I would love to hear like what your situation was like what happened in your life or what, light switch went off where you were like, holy shoot, I can make money doing this. And let me go do this like full time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So, to give some backstory, I graduated from a very, again, rural area. I think we had 44 kids in our class, with including the exchange students. So super rural. I ended up going to technical college, the local tech school, for a marketing degree. And I had started waitressing around 14 or 15 years old, and waitressed all the way through my associate's degree. Because for me, I was definitely given a lot of financial literacy growing up, but never with like the silver spoon mentality of like, you want a car, you want to go to college, like that's on you. But that work ethic was definitely really imparted into me from a young age. And so I enjoyed working. I loved waitressing. And so that just kind of continued on. And waitressing really gave me such a core understanding of customer service and, and having that kind of personality for pleasing people and making sure that they're happy with whatever that they're getting from you. In this case, it was, serving food, right? The fast-paced nature, having to problem solve, obviously a lot lower stakes, like, okay, you screw up a meal or you drop a plate, which would happen all the time because I'm super clumsy. Like either way, it's just I love making my mind work, and it really worked for me. And so through school, I did that and just paid for college as I went. And then I ended up becoming an office manager for my parents' company, which was just a small manufacturing facility. And that's where I really learned the back end of running a small business, meaning all the not sexy stuff, right? Like
Right.
the accounting, payroll, just inventory, things like that, emailing back and forth and handling customer requests and things like that. Like I learned how to do that. So even though, did I like that job necessarily? No. But it taught me a lot, and I stayed there for 3 years. I ended up moving to a different town, like 20 minutes away from where I had been waitressing. And I was like, I'm really done with serving. I think I don't want to be driving back and forth. I'd always had two jobs. And so I was like, I'm ready to take a breather. And that breather happened. And I'm like, oh, I want more money because this isn't enough. Live, don't work for family. That's all I'm gonna say. And
Right.
so I was like, I need to do something else. It was, well, there's no good restaurants to waitress at. So, because that's what I had thought in Black River Falls, which is where I'm located right now, sitting in Black River Falls at our main office. And so I was like, I like cleaning. I always like clean with me videos, like on YouTube. Like I've always done kind of, I guess, body doubling, if you will, meaning if I have to clean my house, I'll actually put on a YouTube video of somebody cleaning their house, and then I clean with them, if you will. Like that's actually been consistently what I've done for a long time. And so I was like, let me just put a flyer up at the community center just as an individual cleaner and see what happens. And nothing happened. Nobody called. And I'm like, well, that didn't work. What now? And at that same time, very serendipitously, I actually followed Melissa Maker on her Clean My Space YouTube channel. And if you're not familiar with Melissa Maker, she is kind of like an influencer in her own right in our industry. And
Love her.
yeah,
Love her.
very successful cleaning company in Toronto, Canada. And her channel was really focused on content for consumers, like homeowners, like how to clean your house better. But it wasn't cleaning industry content. Like it was truly to clients, if you will, or just in general. That is her niche. However, all of a sudden, I follow her channel at that same time that this was all happening, and I'm already considering doing cleaning and tried and failed to even get one client. All of a sudden she posts a video about this course that she is putting out, the Decision Makers course for how to open a cleaning company. And it was like the perfect timing of like, holy crap, like I'm thinking of this, I need something. And it was $2,000. I barely had $2,000, but I'm like, screw it, I'm just going to do it, because like let's see what happens. And usually like it was, yeah, so I made that decision. It was an 8-week course. 8 weeks later, it was April 1st, 2019, and we are announcing at the time Black River Falls Cleaning Services. We've rebranded to Serene Clean, obviously rolls off the tongue a lot better. And yeah, so I from the get-go, outside of that one little like terrible experiment that went wrong and didn't get any clients, I started as a business. I did not start as a solo cleaner. So it opened as a business, fully intended and set up to be a business. And so a lot of the things that course provided were structurally what I think caused a lot of success to occur. And she does not run that course anymore. Unfortunately, because it was great, but like she doesn't run it anymore. But it taught me a lot of, one, I think I had these skill sets already. I had the customer service, I had the work ethic, and I had the business operations side of it. And I had an associate's in marketing. So even though I felt like I didn't know anything what I was doing, I had so many good instincts. And again, we're talking about a 22-year-old. Like I was 22 when this was happening. And so despite not ever owning a business, not ever having employees, and just like, the sheer chaos that ensued as soon as I like announced this, there was structurally a foundation of strength. And what I mean by that is I use cleaning checklists from day one. We had our bonding license and insurance from day one. Just the level of professionalism was very strong. Like that was very important to me, as well as the brand identity. I had a website that I had to launch on day one. I used ZenMaid from day one. I literally picked them. I didn't have any customers, and I had ZenMaid form embedded on my website and like ready to go, so that when I made the announcement on Facebook, which at first thing I did before I announced on Facebook was do 10 free house cleanings for local moms in the area in exchange for a review on Facebook when I did launch, and then the word of mouth, of course, in a small town. So like when when it launched, it just was like a match, on a pile of kindling, and just, so there was all these things that it seems like just this instant success, but it's like
A lot of preparation.
a lot of preparation ahead of times, but I simply had no idea the demand. Because you think small town, no there's nobody that can afford, house cleaning at the rates. And not true at all. There are a lot of people, they're not being served. There's no franchises that are serving them because it's too small for a franchisee to be able to afford it. So we had this market that was not being served. And if they were being served, it was by individual cleaners. And no shade to individual cleaners, but there's key differences and key benefits that we can offer as businesses that they simply cannot. So my first employee I hired in June, so literally 2 months after. And, if you want to hear I think I just recorded I just recorded a podcast episode of my first 10 employees. So I won't go into the nightmare that is my first 10 employee stories. So definitely go watch that on Filthy Rich Cleaners. It's quite funny. But 3 of them actually are still here. 2 of them being in the building right now as managers. So like my first 10 employees, I had some really good luck and they've stuck with me for 6 years from paying them $12 an hour. I didn't even have an office. Employees were coming to my apartment and getting supplies out of a tote outside. Like that was how Serene Clean started. But yeah, so it just all of these things really built to like being something different than anything, like to give that wow factor from day one. Even though I was a kid, I was literally had no idea what I was doing, but like but I gave the impression that I did. And then commercials started calling right away. We got a huge commercial account very early on. Again, just BSing my way through that walkthrough, terrified, 100,000 facility that we got within 3 months of me opening, right? It's just like,
Wow.
So then commercial, like we're actually 50% commercial, 50% residential, like actually straight across the board. Like we have, I think 64 commercial accounts that we service currently. So we're both, we do both and mostly daytime commercial. So yeah.
I love like you're telling me so many things that I didn't know about you, and I'm even like more impressed. So I didn't know you were only 22 when you started the business, which is super impressive because at 22 years old, most people are not thinking about a business. Most people are not even mature enough. So kudos to you for having your stuff together and opening the business. I think that for anybody listening that's in a job where you're doing customer service, where you're dealing with people. And I'll say, like, in my opinion, like almost every job that I've ever had, I've learned something from, right? And I feel like for those of you listening, if you're in customer service, if you're dealing with people, these are really great skills to have. And even though you might be working this job, you're not happy with it, you really don't have any idea how much this is going to impact you in the future, right? So I love that from waitressing, you had all that experience already. And I had something similar. I was also waitressing and dealing with people, and you get to learn how people talk. And like you said, so it feels like everything was like aligning for you almost. But you obviously at the time, you don't know that,
It
right?
doesn't feel like that at all. And actually,
No.
at every like stage of life, I feel like I'm so filled with angst. And then like looking back, it's like, well, of course that happened that way. That's exactly what needed to happen.
It's true. It is so crazy. Like we stress out and we're like, oh my God, what is going on? But you really don't know like what it's leading up to. So, that's awesome that you had all of these people skills that you were able to bring in. I think it was great that you had an opportunity to work with your parents to see what the back end is like and also understand that working for someone else is just not the way to go either.
I like at this point, there's no way I could go work for like I've been spoiled now for years, obviously, but like I'm so used to like Stephanie says jump and everybody says how high, like and
Right.
that's everybody has a say in it. And I would say I'm like my leadership style is super chill. But now it can be because my managers are, that's their job is to manage the staff. I don't have like my interactions with my cleaning staff, which I interact with frequently. We have our team meeting every Monday. We have all of our chats and all of that. But I'm here for the vibes. I'm here to be like the cheerleader. I'm not here to like Crystal, my HR manager, like she's, the bad cop and I'm the good cop. Like I get to,
Right.
because I outsourcing what I don't enjoy. It's like I don't enjoy the HR side of things. I don't enjoy doing payroll. Like I still do all the marketing. I still do all of the branding work. That's what I enjoy. That's what my skill is. But that's a luxury that you don't get to have. You don't get to do that. You need to learn how to do all of those things. Like at the end of the day, I could jump into any role. I'd be rusty, but I could do it.
Right.
it's so important that just because we don't like an aspect of business that we immediately outsource it, because then you can easily be open to getting taken advantage of, scammed, bamboozled, and, embezzled potentially. I've literally spoken to owners who that's happened because they didn't know how to do the books, they didn't know how to do the payroll, so they couldn't check behind who they were hiring to do that, whether that be an internal employee or externally an accountant or a bookkeeper. Like I'm really adamant that we need to all understand the basics of every single department of our business. And when you start out, you're wearing every hat of that.
Right.
You just have different hats on depending on the department and the hour that you are in at the day. And so slowly the hats go to other people, but at any given time, I can understand the role enough to,
Right.
and not that I'm concerned about that with any of my managers. I'm just saying from like a lesson of we need to not be incompetent,
Right.
in any area of the business, basically.
Oh no, and I 100% agree with you on that. Like, obviously, we don't have enough time in the day to do everything, but you should have basic knowledge of what you're asking someone else to do. You should be able to, review somebody's work and actually know like what position you're filling, right? So I think that is a very, very good point. Something I did want to ask you or talk a little bit about is the delegating of it, right? So we know that, you did a lot of work with your systems and processes, figuring out, what happens if all the different scenarios. But when the time came to start delegating, was that a difficult task for yourself? Was it something that you had to kind of like let go of? And I'm asking, I guess, because I'm thinking about how I felt when it came time to even like transitioning. And I also, went into this thinking of it as a business, right? But even like just for those that are listening, as simple as going from cleaning to managing, right? Taking that first step back is very difficult for a lot of people. People have a lot of fear, but how did you like adjust to that? Because now I feel like you are like master delegator, right? But like, hey, was it difficult though? Was it difficult for you to do to like let go and trust other people? Like how was that experience?
So, I mean, I definitely live by the quote of, going from one, failure to another with no loss of enthusiasm. Like that's truly, I am a glass half full kind of gal. And so that kind of like stupid enthusiasm has definitely kept me from going from disappointment to disappointment when it comes to other people as well as myself. Because yes, I've been disappointed countless times when it comes to staff. And like breaking this into two things, we're talking about cleaning and we're talking about office and administrative labor. So looking at cleaning, I knew that I had to, I could only clean on nights and weekends. I had no intentions of leaving my full-time job. So I came in with the mindset of I am going to have to trust other people. And again, looking at first 10 employees, burned again and again. My very first, employee ghosted me. The next one, clocked in at a house and didn't even clean and just like sat in the driveway and stole time. And like these are my very first experiences with, like trying to trust and then it
Mhm.
just being like, like slapped in my face. And so a lot of people would take that and be like, see, you can't hire, nobody wants to work, do not trust other people, I might as well just do it myself. And I see that so many times, and that's fine. That means you're not prepared or ready or willing to go through what it means to actually manage staff. You shouldn't manage staff. If that is so absolutely like mind blowing that you can't handle that, like we have to handle it. And so I
Right.
knew that the only way was to have staff. And that means I cannot give up. There was simply no other option because I was not going to be a full-time cleaner. I had no intentions, again, of leaving my family's business at that time until I was, basically forced to because of the demands of Serene Clean and it growing. But I truly was like, this is the only way. And when you, in your mind, think there is only one way forward, you figure it out real fast because there's no other option. And so that's exactly what I did of like, okay, because this person was a crappy person, that doesn't extrapolate to the billion other people that are, around me.
Right.
Like, and stop. I think the biggest problem that we need to avoid, and I like not getting cynical because one person or seven people or 100 people have burned you. I've gone through hundreds of employees at this point.
Yes.
And if I looked at all of the terrible things that they have done, and then I would and only focused on that and extrapolated that across the population, I would say you can't trust people and nobody wants to work, of course. But that's because you're just like focusing in
Yes.
this
On
negative.
the negative.
Yeah, and it's like at the end of the day, like people are people, people are going to do people things. And I just like it's just next, next,
Right.
next. Because again, there's only one path forward, and that's hiring people and trusting people. So therefore, I have to work on myself of just like getting over things really quickly, because looking at some of those first hires and even that first year or so, like or maybe even longer, I would get so upset, and I would be like, gosh, like why would they do that to me? And I would take it so personally. And I know we've talked about
Right.
that, like just taking things so personally, where it's just like they don't care about you at all, and that it's not their job to care about this. You're the owner, of course you're going to care more. So why are you putting this on them? And in the beginning, you can't pay them high, you can't do anything for them, you have no benefits. Like, is that not to be expected? I got really lucky with some of my, staff members that are still with me today, 6 years later, that got hired in that time. But honestly, it's shocking to me, because it's like the only thing I could offer them was flexibility. And so just learning to trust and really making it as easy as possible for them to be successful, right? So like when you're hiring in the beginning and you don't have any type of systems in place, or say even a cleaning checklist for them to follow, you're setting themselves up for failure, and then you're yelling at them for being that failure. Like, no, it's actually you that is the failure in this, like, and really looking at it of, taking like extreme ownership. That's a great book, and I would
Hmm.
definitely say, like, if somebody is failing, well, what part do I have in that? And there's definitely something I could do. Is it the training, lack of orientation? They have no standard like operating procedures. They just say, go clean it like the other house. Well, what does that even mean? What does
Right. Well,
clean mean? Because
where does it start? What are we doing? What does that
exactly,
include?
yeah, and just so it's a lot to ask of somebody, and this is a really physical job. So, how can we make it as easy as possible for them to be successful? And that's truly how we kind of filter all of our decision making processes when it comes to the employees of like, what would make their day easier? Like, it is a lot to wake up and get in your car and go clean 2 houses a day and deal with people and and then have to come home and deal with your kids, right? Like, so it's a big ask that we're asking. So, how can we make that and facilitate as easy as possible? And really set themselves up for success, because by doing that, it actually sets you up for success, because you're going to have happy clients, make more money, grow, less administrative craziness. And so just having a process for everything. And of course, I did not have all of this in the beginning. This is me coming from my experience now, and
Right.
all of the systems we have in place of like start and end procedures and how, like, yeah, cleaning checklists and how you do this and how you do that. It's like, I never want somebody in my business to say, well, I didn't know I was supposed to do that, or I didn't know how to do that. And that's why we got this complaint, or that's why I,
Right.
did this thing. And it's like, if somebody is able to legitimately say that and it's like an excuse that would fly, well, that means there's something wrong with the business. It's not the person. Like employees are going to take any excuse they can oftentimes, and not necessarily always like maliciously, but if it's there, they're going to take it. And so how can
Right.
you give them as few excuses that are legitimate as possible is kind of my philosophy. And so I just kept going. Like, yeah, I wouldn't give up of, and I just kept getting pulled back in the field, back in the field, back in the field, and just not allowing that to like get you down.
Right.
And from a like actually how did I get out of the field, it was just a ton of quality checks, checking in with the client, giving that feedback immediately to the cleaner, and just slowly improving. And so eventually, yes, I wasn't getting pulled in as much. And then from an office like administrative labor standpoint, like I was doing it all until about a year in, when one of my part-time cleaners, who was just, she had her full-time career at an ophthalmology clinic, and she was like, hey, things have changed, and I'm, if you ever need help in the office, I would be interested, because she was just cleaning like Airbnbs for me as well as
Hmm.
doing move outs, very limited, but smart cookie, right? And I was like, I was drowning. I was drowning because the business, and I was still working full time, right? So like I was just every
You
single
were juggling a lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was. I was juggling a lot, and trying to, at that point, manage. I think I had, like 7 to 10 staff members, and trying to manage that as well as, like dozens of clients and growing every day. And so it was just total chaos. And so when she said that, I was like, when can you start? How much do I have to pay you? And so she came on full time, but she was still, all of a sudden now she's the fill-in, which gave me some breathing room. I mean, we both were cleaning, but
Mhm.
I have another person as almost that kind of fill in, when people call in or whatever. So we're both cleaning a ton, but then we just both started tackling the admin, like literally, like, you do this, you do this. There wasn't a lot of rhyme or reason, but I was just seeing that her work was good and accurate. And so that's Crystal. She's, my HR director, and like I said, my longest employee. She started in July. I opened in April, and like it's just crazy. Like I just got so lucky.
That is so awesome.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
it's wild.
You had said something a couple minutes back. You said, just because you hire somebody and they do something crappy to you, or, like you said, you've had hundreds of employees. If I were to go into my ADP account and see those people that are no longer with us too, it's sad. But for those of you that are listening that have a cleaning business, that are in that hiring process, and you are feeling discouraged, keep on going. Just like Stephanie said, we all kind of live like the same life within this cleaning industry, meaning that we all know that it's hard to find really good talent, right? But you have to go through all of those bad eggs, we'll just say, to get to that great person. And that's what we've also experienced. Just people not showing up, not caring about their job. And like you said, they're not the boss, minimum wage, whatever the case may be, physical labor, it's not a sexy job at all, but you have to keep going. Like you have to keep going until you do find the right fit for your company, right? Those that care, that show up, that want to listen, that, get what you're putting out. So don't get discouraged if you're in that phase right now. It happens to us all. It's a very common theme amongst cleaning business owners. But yeah, if you give up, you're never going to know what the possibilities could have been. And there are going to be multiple times throughout your business. It doesn't have to just be with staffing, that things are going to arise, issues are going to happen, and you do have to be tenacious. I don't know about you, but when I first started my cleaning business, I wouldn't say it was like a full-on problem solver. So like every little thing that happened in the beginning, I was like kind of freaking out because I'm just like, oh, it was new. It was like it was new to me. And thankfully I did have a mentor in the beginning that I still have, but he told me something that kind of stuck with me forever. And now I tell my kids and everybody else this, is that if you're going to be an entrepreneur, if you're going into business, you need to own being a problem solver. Like you just have to take that and say, you know what? This is my new job. And it could even be outside of your business. It could be in home, right? If you're the head of household, whatever the case may be. But once you own the fact that you are a problem solver, you will have problems arise every day, possibly. You no longer kind of feel anxious toward the what ifs, the what could happens, right? For example, like this is like unrelated to the cleaning business, but just kind of how I am so, I don't want to say numb, but I am just so relaxed to the drama. My kids told me the other day, they go out to the house, they come back in and they're like, your car's not in your spot. And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, your car's not there. We parked your car in our spot. It's not there. And I was just so calm. Like I just put my jacket on, grabbed the umbrella. Like before I had my business, I would have been freaking out. I would have been calling my boyfriend, calling the cops. Like, but I was like, you know what? In my head, I was just looking at them. They're freaking. I'm like, logically, I'm like, the car has to be there. They didn't put the car where they said they did, or it just got towed for whatever reason, right? Even though it's my spot. But regardless, I just knew in my head, I will figure it out. Like, I wasn't going through it all. And that happens, eventually we found out they did park in the opposite lot, right? The car wasn't missing. But my reaction toward that situation would have been so much different like 6 years ago. But the business has taught me that like you cannot freak out, you cannot panic, you cannot, for every little inconvenience, for every little issue, right? Because if you do give in to that, you won't have any energy to do anything else.
Yeah, it clouds judgment. It clouds your decision making ability when that anxiety and panic. Like panic just it takes our, it truly is, I think, our brain of like, it's like saying like run, freak out, where it's just
Right.
like, there's always a solution. And I think, for me, like it's how fast can you get to taking action? Because there's always something that you can do. And even looking back at like probably one of the biggest challenges or scary thing was we were a year in business and then COVID hit, right? And like, I'm like, oh my gosh, what, I remember just that, like, okay, things are going into lockdown. We can't go into people's houses, and I have employees, and like just that like pit in my stomach and not knowing what to do because this is unprecedented. It's not like you can Google this, and
Right.
ChatGPT didn't exist. And so it was just like, what do I do? And just like, okay, like I need to calm fears. And I immediately like recorded a video and put it out on Facebook and sent it to our clients of exactly what we were going to do. And just saying, we're monitoring the situation. We'll be switching over to all disinfecting products. If you do not want to be home, blah, blah, blah. Like I had like coming up with plans and me being
Right.
confident, even though I was not like looking back at the video, I'm like, how was I so calm? But like, it calmed everybody else that I didn't transfer that stress to my
Right.
then it just kept going and then not knowing what to do and then having the PPP and like and we ended up turning it into a positive of like, okay, I got staff who can't go to houses, we got payroll covered, let's reach out to every small business and church in town and clean them for free. And that's what we did, and turn this like negative thing into like a really positive thing in our community. And also, the ramifications from a branding perspective were huge for that, like that positive impact of, we got this thing to protect us, like let's pass it on to businesses that perhaps are not so lucky. And so just immediately going into like problem solving mode. And I'll give you an example. This week, literally Monday night, we had a cleaner quit without notice, and she was covering a commercial account that we have now had 3 staff members quit because it's so stressful to them. And so this is our second largest commercial account. It's
Mhm.
$5,000 a month. And saying, we're going to keep running into this because we don't have enough time approved to actually even get like half of the facility done. So it's really stressful there. It's a school.
Mhm.
And like going in and never get feeling accomplished just isn't working. And we're just having a really like, it's in our third location that's more difficult for us to staff, specifically in the evenings. It's very challenging. There's just a lot more competition.
Mhm.
And usually we're pretty good at staffing. And like, okay, sitting down with my managers yesterday and coming at it from every angle of like, okay, what would it look like to make this actually work? And is the juice worth the squeeze? Or do we just focus on the low hanging fruit of we could replace this revenue with daytime residential or commercial like this? It would take 20 hours a week of work to replace it. And like coming into the conversation, I was like, we are not dropping this account. I'm not like, that's scary. Like, that's scary.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
actually speaking it out of like, what would it look like if we did? What would it look like if we didn't? And like literally looking at it from like just spelling everything out to the point of we're dropping it. And like, and that's like, I mean,
Nice.
I'm saying like,
Congratulations.
yeah,
That's great.
it's a great account. They're nice, everything, but it's not a great account for us
For you,
because
right. It's just not
yeah,
a good fit.
yeah, it's not a good fit because of the time of day. Otherwise, it would be great. And we can't come during the day because kids like we can't
Right.
clean there during the day. And so, just having that realization of like this struggle is not going to change. We can easily staff daytime. We can easily replace this revenue if we just focused our efforts on increasing leads, close rates, and looking at those, pulling those levers. And like you only have so much time and energy and decision making in a day. So if Crystal is focusing on staffing this so heavily and she can't focus on, staffing just normal hours, like all again, opportunity costs of our time and energy. So if we just poured it into getting more residential, like it's not that big of a deal. But I think we all get very scared sometimes, especially when you're talking about finances, and especially when we're talking finances of staff, right? Like for me,
Mhm.
like I have this huge sense of like I am providing for 30 families, like
Right.
and that for me that prompts me in a way that maybe I wouldn't do things for myself as much. And I use that as motivation of like, this will succeed. There's no other option. And if that's the case, there's one path, a lot of ways to, walk that path, but it's going to happen. And so just really don't even burn the boats. You know what I mean? Like burn the boats. That's my mentality. And not that I when it came to me actually switching to full time at Serene Clean, I was making here what I was making at my old job so I could cover my income. So I'm not a fan of burning boats before you're financially stable.
Right, right.
I'm still like
But when it comes time.
When it comes time, it's like, no, this thing is going to work and we're going to figure out a way. And like, I was feeling a little panicky yesterday, but it's just like, I literally just talked through it and taught, like, I'm feeling scared because of this and because leads are a little bit down from last year at this same time and people are closing less because of it. And so, like, just speaking that out
Right.
and saying, okay, what could we do? Because when we say our fear, and get it out on paper, it's a lot easier to like poke holes in it and be like, well, we know this works. We know this works. So like I'm not immune to this, but I just think I'm able to work through it a lot better than the kid who started the business.
Right. Which is so awesome. So many nuggets in this
Yeah,
one
I can
podcast.
talk, obviously I can talk.
I know, no, me too. Like so many nuggets in this podcast. I feel like for our young listeners listening, it's never too young to start. I'm still in shock that we're only 22 when you made this huge decision to start the business. I heard preparing is like the best way to go for an outcome, right? Like you had mentioned, having your website ready, having those booking forms, following Melissa Maker, which by the way, I did all those three things too as well. That's why I like was super excited when we were talking about your podcast. And I'm like, oh my God. But yeah, like being, you can never be over prepared for any situation. And I feel like just, you are where you need to be. I feel like everything has happened, exactly how it should have. And, all of your success is due to being ready, being prepared and not giving up, right? Because a lot of this stuff you didn't know and I didn't know when we started the cleaning business. You and I always say, like, we fake it till we make it in those certain situations when it's the first time, but it's all about being confident. And I feel that like confident comes with being prepared, right? And also like just understanding that you are going to run into issues and you can't.
Mistakes, and I think
Yeah.
really I think the biggest problem that a lot like inhibits a lot of us from success is we don't learn from our mistakes. Something happens in our business and then we're just like, God, that sucks so bad. And
Do
then
it again.
do it again. Do it again. Never analyzing. And like even today in my management meeting today, we have a ops meeting on Wednesdays, and we're like, okay, we're seeing this pattern of behavior in a lot of our failed hires recently, meaning they're underestimating the physicality of this job and their lives are kind of really chaotic outside of it. So how can we vet that better? Instead of just being like, gosh, this sucks every single time, we're like,
Right.
okay, like pause. What is happening? That's the problem. What can we attempt and experiment with to try to facilitate a solution to that problem? And it's obviously, we're talking about human beings. There's only so much you can do, but don't just keep saying, God, this sucks. It's so hard to hire. Or gosh, it's so hard to get clients. And you're not changing anything. You're not trying, like, and I think
Yes.
like it's okay to experiment, like don't, like, yes, preparation is one thing, but do not go into analysis paralysis. I will say on the two sides, I am a woman of action as opposed to analyzing, and that means stupid things sometimes happen, but then I
Yes.
quickly adjust because you need, like, cold calling, right? Like, for example, we're all like, how do I perfectly cold call? You get on the phone and you do it terribly 100 times and then all of a sudden it's easy, right? Or
Right.
whatever the thing is. Or how do I hire perfectly? Well, you go through 50 of them and you figure it out as you go. But figuring it out is what I want to emphasize here, is don't keep making the same mistake. Like, learn from the problems.
100%. Yeah. Do not make the same
Yeah.
mistakes because you're not going to have a different outcome whatsoever.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh. Well, Stephanie, I want to say thank you so much
That.
for dropping all of these gems. I know we're going to get a ton of comments
Mhm.
on this video. If you guys have any comments for Stephanie or questions, please make sure to put them down in the comments below. I am going to be putting all of her links so that you can follow her. Make sure you join all of the groups that she's in. And what can we expect from you and Serene Clean over the next, I'll say, 2 to 5 years? Like, where do you see yourself? What can we be looking out for?
Yeah, I think that the future of Serene Clean is definitely just going deeper and kind of trying to, milk our locations as much as we can, and really focusing on, yeah, lowest hanging fruit of, like, we know what works, just do more of what works. And I think that I have previously been very unfocused and distractible. And I've mentioned this before, like being a magpie and shiny object, open another location, try this new service, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what works is boring. And that means we're really good at residential, we're good at daytime commercial. go get more of it, you know. And I think really just honing and developing those, we've really been focusing on internal processes and just you know, increasing benefits, being a great place to work so people don't want to leave. Like, our culture is second to none and something I'm really proud of. So I think just, yeah, increasing our it's the boring stuff. Honestly, I don't foresee giant jumps of growth, but just steady, being consistent is
Right.
the goal. And for me personally, obviously, we're chugging out two episodes of Filthy Rich Cleaners a week, and that's been fabulous. It's been so fun, and I've gotten to connect with, you know, you and so many others of in our industry, and it's just been really a blast. I enjoy podcasting greatly, and then obviously collaborating with my friends at ZenMade, and that's been such a joy to be able to influence the software and make an actual difference in a software that's catered to just us, meaning the cleaning industry. So yeah, it's been a hoot, and I'm really
It is. It's a lot of fun. I'm super excited. For those of you that are thinking about starting a cleaning business, this is your sign. Go out there and, you know, just do it. You know, be a woman or man of action like Stephanie and myself. Don't over analyze everything. Because like you said, you could go, you know, to the other extreme, and just do your research. Do your research, you know. There are a lot of awesome people out here, such as Stephanie and myself, that, you know, have a ton of resources, give great information. There are a ton of Facebook groups that you can join. I'll be sure to put down below in the description the ZenMade Facebook groups that we are in. There are thousands of amazing cleaning business owners. And of course, I will be putting a link to the ZenMade platform for those of you that are interested in automizing your cleaning business. It's an amazing app, and I could say for myself, and I know you as well, Stephanie, it has really been instrumental, you know, in a part of growing our businesses. But please make sure to check Stephanie out. I'm sure we're going to have future videos together, and we will see you on the next episode. Thank you. Thanks, Stephanie.
So good to talk to you again, Carolyn.
You too. Have a great day.
You too. Bye bye.